Okay. Hi, everyone. So this first science career introduction is with Cody Wolford, and he is a pilot. So first, he's going to start us off with telling us about his background.
So yeah, my name's Cody Wolford. I'm from Lee County, originally born and raised. I grew up in Stickleyville, Virginia, and now I live in Jonesville, Virginia. I was a 2015 graduate of Lee High School. After graduating from Lee High School, I went to Mountain Empire for a couple of years, get some free education, and then went on to college at Avery University in Danville, Virginia, and that's where I graduated, and that's how I became a pilot.
Okay. So now Cody is going to tell us a little bit about his career field. So if you could just kind of start us off with a basic overview of what it's like to be a pilot.
Yeah, so my career for that to do was a pilot. I just tried to think of something that I could enjoy doing every single day, but that was a job that put food on my table as well. And I kind of decided I want to be a pilot. So basically, there's so many different choices you can do with it. I decided to do the aerial surveying side of things in the beginning, just because it's local. I get to live in Lee County. I get to fly cool jobs for infrastructure. I get to help fly jobs for Tesla and fly jobs for different companies and help build our infrastructure of our country to where it is today. So I think that's pretty neat to get to see how it all starts from a cornfield up to a interstate, going to DC or anything. So I chose to do that route of career flying. There's different flying. I have a brother, he flies for corporate aviation. So he flies the corporate side of business owners, or you can get into the airlines and you can fly, flights of families going to vacations or going to business trips or however you want to do it. But so I just decided to get into a career where I could fly local to home, but I could also be home with my family a lot, because that was a huge plus for me.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I don't know anything about being a pilot, so that sounds really cool. I didn't know that you have all these different pathways you can choose from. So
Yeah,
what does the training look like to become a pilot?
so it's broken up into a couple of different licenses. First and foremost, you have to get what they call a private license, and you just go to an airplane. You do a couple ground school lessons. You have to have 40 hours of flight time, and this is just to get you comfortable in an airplane. And once you get that under your belt, then you can go you got to go with an examiner and you take him or her in the airplane. You have to go fly, maybe tell you to do these different maneuvers, and you do a ground lesson with them, and you have to answer all these questions they hit you with. And when you get your private license, you can only fly for fun. If I just wanted to fly my family around on vacation or whatever, I could do that, but you can't get paid to be a pilot with just that license. And then they have another license. It's a rating that you can add on to that called an instrument rating. And this is just to say, hey, I can fly through weather. I can fly through clouds. I can fly, because if you don't have an instrument rating, you can't fly through any clouds. It's all broken up into weird spectrums, but basically it's just instrument means I can fly this airplane solely off my instruments. So I could block the windshield out the airplane and only fly using my instruments without looking outside. So you have to add that onto it. And then if you want to be a pilot as a career choice, you have to get what they call a commercial pilot's license. And in order to fly for any business, fly for any compensation, any hire, anything like that, you have to go through and do it's 300 hours of more flying, doing more maneuvers, getting more comfortable. Because if you're going to be flying people for money and you're going to be flying as a job, they want you to be more comfortable in the airplane that you're going to. They want you to be safe and stuff. So they make you go into that. But all these licenses only allow you to fly an airplane with one engine on it. So you can only fly a single engine airplane. And then what I had to do as my last step to complete my training is I had to get a multi-engine license. So I had to go in an airplane with two engines on it and fly around. But you do most of your flying with only one engine, because you got to learn how to fly if one engine was to fail. So the whole multi-engine training is basically a single engine training. And then so once you get that and you have your private, your instrument, your commercial, and your multi, then basically you're set up to where you can go find a job and find a career. You just got, at that point, you knock on doors and send resumes as fast as you can and just try to find a job.
Okay, that's interesting. So to get the private license, where are places that somebody who's just interested in maybe seeing if they would be interested in being a pilot, just to kind of experience that, where could they go to get their private license?
So there's a couple around here. There's a guy, he owns a flight school, and he has about 13 airplanes, and he bases them out of Tri-Cities Airport over in Kingsport. He bases one in Morristown, Tennessee, and I think he has one in Greenville, Tennessee. I think it's the third location. But I would highly recommend, if anyone's interested in wanting to become a pilot or see if you want to become a pilot, you can go to these local flight schools and sign up for an introduction flight. That's what me and my brother done to start off on flying. We've been wanting to be pilots since we were 4 years old. So we just decided, hey, and my mom and dad finally was like, these kids ain't crazy. Maybe they actually do want to fly an airplane, you know? So they took us to an introduction flight, and basically they take you up for 30 minutes and they just fly you around and let you see how everything goes. And it's like really cheap. I can't remember, but for the introduction flight, you know, they want you to be a pilot as bad as you want to be a pilot. So they're saying, hey, come along with us. Let's show you how everything is. And then when you land, then they'll talk to you and say, is this something you want to continue doing? Do you see yourself doing this? And it just kind of introduces you to the whole realm of aviation and being a pilot. So if anyone's interested, I highly recommend you go to your local flight school, sign up for an introduction flight, talk to some pilots. It's a great industry to be in.
How much does it cost for someone that's looking to kind of do those introductory classes?
I think it froze up.
Oh, sorry. How much does it cost for someone to do those introductory classes?
Can't remember how much the introductory class was. I want to say maybe it might have been $50, maybe. I can't remember exactly. But I know the first introduction flight's pretty cheap compared to like the rest of the training. Like once you get into it, then you gotta pay more to get into the actual training. But the introductory flight itself, I think it's maybe $50. It's only a little 30-minute flight, but it's well worth the money. It's well worth the money.
Mm-hmm. Wow, yeah, definitely the cheapest plane ticket I think that you'll be buying. So you went to, did you say Avert? Is that how you pronounce the college that you went to?
Avert University, yeah.
Okay, so when you were there, do they give you do you have to take additional classes, or is it mostly just them helping you maneuver the plane, or is there a lot of classroom? Is there a big classroom component to it, or is it mostly just you training as you're like in the plane?
Yeah, that was the fun part about it, because I was so interested in aviation. You know, I wanted to learn the flying side of it, but I wanted to learn as much as I could book work too. And that was a big thing about going to a university. Like if you can become a commercial pilot. You can go get your commercial license and never step foot on a college campus. You can go almost like how they have technical schools, you know, for mechanics and welders. You could go to a school like these local flight schools at Morristown or Tri-Cities, and you could go and do your license through them and get your commercial license and go fly for a company. But I really wanted to get a degree with it because I wanted to study the whole realm of aviation. I didn't want to just study how to fly the airplane, you know. So at that college they had, you know, we took weather classes where we'd be in a classroom just like algebra or chemistry or history. You know, we'd sit down in a classroom and we talk about nothing but weather. We talk about federal aviation regulations, like all the rules. We went through the book of what regulations you have to abide by. There's so many different rules, you know, speeds and altitudes and all this stuff you got to learn. And we would talk about, you know, the airport, because my degree's in aviation management. So we had like business, you know, aviation classes as far as we had to run our own airline. Like we had to say, you have $100,000 to start an airline. How many airplanes are you buying? Are you buying airplanes? Are you leasing airplanes? So we got to do a lot of class work to learn, you know, the industry as a whole. But we also had flight blocks, they called them, where we'd go to the airport. We'd be paired up with an instructor one-on-one. Then we'd go to the airplane, fly in the sky, come back down, and have so we had a lot of classroom work with a little bit of flying. But I just like that route a little bit better because I wanted to learn more than just the flying part of it. I feel like that makes you a more well-rounded individual, you know.
Yeah, definitely. The weather seems to be a pretty huge factor in whether you're able to fly, you know.
Yeah, especially on days like today.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I probably wouldn't want to be flying on a day like today, but it sounds like you would have training to know how to go about that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So it sounds like there's really kind of like two different career paths. Like you can do a little bit more of like a vocational training where you are doing a lot of like hands-on, just doing flight classes, obtaining your licenses, and then being able to find a job, apply after that. Or you can kind of go this other route where you go and you get like an actual degree while you're still getting all the training so you can get those licenses. So I guess like when you graduate, you have your degree, and then do you obtain like each license like each semester kind of while you're in your training, or is it kind of like on your own time you have to be getting these licenses?
Yeah, it's on your own time. And that was a good thing about it too, is because, you know, I was trying to save as much money as possible. So I wanted to go to Mountain Empire on the AIM scholarship and use my general education for free because college is outrageous. So I went there to do that. And then, when we got to Averitt, we're thinking, well, we're 2 years behind now because a lot of these guys here have 4 years to go from no pilot to commercial pilot. And we're like, we only have 2 years, but you can do that on your own time. You can, we signed up for as many flying fast as we could. So it's basically like you can get your licenses whenever you want. You can get your, you can have all your licenses done by junior year, but you still got to take your class credits to get your credits to graduate. So as far as your class credits go, it goes to 4 years, but you can get your pilot license as quick or as long as possible. Like some people, it takes 4 months to get it there at college. Some people, it took 2 years to get it. It just depends. That's all on your own time, how hard you want to put the work in.
Okay, that's interesting. So I guess that probably wasn't a part of like your tuition to the college.
Yeah, basically the flight cost, like you pay your regular tuition and then your flight costs like for class for tuition. So if you go the college route, it's definitely a little more expensive. Yeah, it's a lot more expensive, but than going to like a local place. But I just wanted, especially the way the industry is, like just like how COVID just happened and you see all these airlines laying off and all this, I wanted a degree so I could have something to fall back on if I needed to fall back on it.
Right, definitely. Could you go back over the part about so you have like your classes and then these additional flight like actually doing that to your certifications? Because my like on my end it lagged, and so I'm not sure if like in the recording it'll lag, and that was kind of an important part. And I
Okay.
don't know if it actually like came through what you said.
Yeah, so just talk about the classrooms and the flying stuff.
Yeah, how you said that. So you have like your tuition, and that's really for like your classroom, and then when you're actually getting like to get your certifications to do the flying, that seems to be like a separate thing that you'd have to be paying for.
Yeah. So like if you go the college route, they give you like the breakdown of like you're going to take this many course credits this semester, and this is what your tuition is going to be. This is what your room and board is going to be, and they give you that, and then they give you another sheet of paper that says, well, private is going to cost, your private license is going to cost this much money. Your instrument license is going to cost this much money. Your commercial license is going to cost this much money. And they just, so you basically have your tuition in a bucket over here, and then you have your flying costs in a bucket over here, and then it meets together and makes a big nasty bucket.
Yeah. But it's okay. We take out our loans and then we pay them back. At least that's what I'm doing. So, it's not the best, but you make it work.
Yeah, because like the way I viewed it is, if I wouldn't have done what I've done to go to school, if I wouldn't have, taken the money out and done what I've done, then I would not wake up every morning and enjoy the job that I do today. So it's worth it to me to get to wake up and do what I love every day. And I don't, there's days where I wake up and I'm like, I just don't want to do this, but it's a lot better than doing a job I hated. So I think it's a short-term, loss for a long-term gain.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if there's anything like this, but like in medicine and healthcare, they're like loan repayment programs. Is there anything like that with aviation?
If there is, I do not know.
Okay.
I might
like there to be.
need to do some research.
Yeah. Well, I was just thought, I don't know. It would be interesting. I guess maybe like you said that you were doing like infrastructure, and so your brother Jamie, so he does private. So I wonder if maybe there might be some instances where maybe the people that you're working for might kind of help you pay down some of those loans or something. So maybe that'd be something for if someone goes into aviation, maybe they could talk about with their employer.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there definitely is, especially like with these airlines right now. You can use it, for whatever you want to use it for, but they're right pre-COVID, and I think they're getting back to that now because airlines are starting to pick up a little bit again, is they were giving you pretty good size sign-on bonuses to come to the airlines, so that, and they, some of them classified it as like a repayment thing or to help, with the tax issues and all that. But yeah, definitely, there's definitely some, I've heard of some instances where if you go to a corporation and say, I promise to sign, I'll promise to work here 5 years if you'll pay this much percent on my loan, or like my boss, where I already went to school when I came here, he doesn't do it. But people, like if I came here and said, I want to further my education, he pays your education based off your grades in school. So if you make all A's in school, he pays 100% of your education. If you make B's, he pays, 90% of your education. And he bases his pay scale based off of your grades because he wants to, it's his money. He does like a furthering education, but I don't know if he does like a backtrack education. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right. Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, that's really good for anyone who's like looking to go into aviation to know about that. You can kind of find these people. who are willing to help you, even just to obtain your schooling. Yeah. So yeah, I wish someone had done that for me with undergrad, but we're
Yeah,
doing it the hard way.
yeah. Like if you like to go back and look at my transcript, you can see my grades and pay what I,
Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's kind of frustrating, but it's good to know, I guess, for now everyone can know your wisdom. And then, so is there just kind of anything else that you think people need to know about like the training required? I guess maybe one thing that might be helpful is like, are there any kind of prerequisites? Like, are there any kind of specific, science courses, math courses, or anything like that that people need to take if they would opt for more of this like academic career going to a university like Harvard to be able to get their degree?
yeah. I think we took a physics class, and we took or I think it was a year of physics, and that was the hardest class I've ever taken in my life. But as far as viewing the world in a different light, that was a great class, and it applies a whole lot to aviation. I'm not saying you have to be a physics major to fly an airplane because you don't, but it helps you understand things and why the airplane reacts the way it reacts, and so I think a good and you got the weather side of things, so you can know like the science side of things, like the layers of the earth and how temperature affects things different ways, and you got the condensation and rain and all this stuff going on. So I think if you have a good background in math and science, that goes a long way with aviation.
Okay, are there any like math courses that you all had to take? Or did you just kind of take pre-cal, or did you have to take calculus or anything?
Yeah, we took pre-calculus, and I think our physics might have transferred us, like, because basically, like, whenever we went to transfer into Avery, they said, hey, you got to have this level of math or equal, this level of whatever or equal. So actually, one of our physics classes actually transferred as like an elective, so it was just like a tennis class or whatever, which was aggravating as could be. I said that was a very hard class.
Yeah.
So one semester transferred in as a great, it covered like a math. So by the time we left Mountain Empire to go to Avery, we had every general study class over with. I think I had to take one history class and maybe yeah, I think it's just a history class. So it was actually kind of nice because when I transferred, I could just solely focus on aviation, and so aviation classes. If you can get those knocked out as soon as possible to where you can focus on your major, that helped a lot.
Yeah. And so like for those kind of courses like physics and maybe if like the math courses maybe kind of like scare people a little bit. So did you have any tutoring services or anything that you all could use? Did you have a TA? I guess if you took it at Mountain Empire, then it was probably pretty accessible to get to your professor to ask them questions, or did you feel like that you had enough help with those courses?
Oh yeah, yeah. I know. Actually, after the first class of physics, he's going over because pre-calculus I learned, but I didn't learn what I probably didn't do as much as I should have. And so whenever the first class of physics, the professor's writing all this stuff on the board and all this stuff on the board, and he just keeps saying, well, you guys have pre-calculus, you should know this. You guys have pre-calculus, you should know this. And at the end of the class, I'll never, like, me and James looked at each other and we was like, we're done. So I walked up to him and I said, hey, his name is Mr. Wright. I said, Mr. Wright, I'm going to fail your class. I probably shouldn't take your class. And he said, no, he said, I've never had anyone fail my class. He said, if you work and you put in the effort and you show me you're going to put in the effort, then I'm going to put in effort back in you, and you're not going to fail this class. And he said after class, came in early for class, he'd always answer his emails immediately. He would post videos and put them online for you to watch. So we had plenty of help with him, and he was very good to help us and helped us get through the hardest class ever.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess maybe the other thing to reiterate is like I've seen a lot of people that are pre-med and then they take these classes and they take like a pre-reg class like physics or like orgo, and then it's like, oh, I don't want to be a physician. But like as a physician, you don't do physics and you don't do orgo, and it's the same thing with being a pilot. Like you had to take that class and it was difficult, but you got through it and it doesn't affect your daily life at all. But
Exactly. Yeah.
it is really interesting. I loved physics, also, so it is, yeah, it's cool to take it, but also realizing that if you take it and you don't like it, but it's something you have to do, it's just that something that you have to do, and it will not affect your life as a pilot.
Right. Yeah. It's just if you can just get over that one semester, that 2 semesters of pure wildness, then you can get the rest of your life and never have to think about it again. But it's totally worth it just to suck it up and go through it.
Right. Yeah. So, okay, yeah. Is there anything else that you think that anyone needs to know about just kind of the basics of being a pilot or any of the training required or obtaining certifications or anything?
Yeah. Well, just in general as a whole, and I know you completely understand this because this is what I try to tell everybody. I guess this is going to like, is this going to Lee County classes? Is this
It'll be like on a website that's made for like Lee County classes, but like really anybody will be able to look at it and kind of view it.
okay? Well, you'll understand this completely because anyone coming from a small town is, you have this whole status quo of, well, I need to do this because my family's doing this. I need to go this career because my friends are going this career, and I need to do this. But don't be afraid to step out and do what you want to do. You got to find there's jobs out there for everybody. So if you find something that you truly enjoy doing, research it, find a way to make a living off of it, and go do that. Or just like if you want to be a doctor, be a doctor. If you want to be a pilot, be a pilot. If you want to be a mechanic, be a mechanic. But you don't have to follow the status quo of what the whole county is doing or what anyone's doing. It's totally fine to step outside, do what you enjoy doing, because you're the one going to work every single day the rest of your life. You might as well enjoy what you're doing. That's the biggest thing I could tell anybody is just enjoy what you're doing because you're working your life away. So just enjoy it.
Right. Yeah. You spend more days at work than doing anything else in life. So
Yeah,
yeah, I guess I'll enjoy it.
I spend more time with my work family than I do my family. So you better enjoy what you're doing, and enjoy who you're with.
Right. Yeah. So why did you kind of choose aviation? You kind of like alluded to this in a couple of different places, but if you could just kind of take us like from the beginning, what was the very initial
So
interest in it?
so I guess some reason, I guess it's a way that you can turn something bad into something good. Is what happened was back when 9/11 happened. That was the very first time I'd ever been introduced to any kind of airplane at all. I saw that and I was like, so I was really young. I was about 3 or 4 years old when that first happened, and that was just. And then my dad, he traveled a whole lot. And I guess like when security really stepped up around airports. I was real young. We just take my dad to the airports and drop him off and come home. But then like some reason it just caught my attention at airports, and I started seeing all this going on now. I'm like, okay, security stepping up and all this. And then I guess it just started drawing my attention more and more to the airplanes. So we'd always go to Tri-Cities Airport, drop him off, go to the observation deck, watch the airplane take off and leave. And we'd always turned into we'd watch my dad leave. Well, then we'd start watching more come in and land. Then we start sitting there for hours and hours. And my mom's like, we got to go home. And then I just stumbled across that Microsoft Flight Simulator game, and I just bought it. And I said, let's just try this game out a little bit. So that's a very realistic flight game. So we flew it a little bit. My brother did, trying to just kind of get into it. And in 2010, I believe it was, so I'd have been 13 years old. We done our first introduction flight at Tri-Cities Airport. And ever since then, we were like, we want to do this for a living. so we just kind of got into it from there. And every time we travel somewhere, we try to find museums. Like we went to some museums of like Denver and all these different places, and just tried to soak up every bit of aviation we could. We tried to go to air shows and just started getting into it. And I just loved airplanes. And after the first flight, I said, I got to figure out a way where I can do this, but get paid to look out this window, get paid to fly this airplane. So far, it just happened to fall together.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, sounds like it happened very organically.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's interesting. So just like in the field of aviation, after kind of like hearing all this, if people are like, yeah, okay, wow, this is something I hadn't really ever thought about, but maybe definitely something I'd be interested in. So what are the different routes? Like once someone becomes a pilot, what are the different ways that they can use those licenses?
you can use them for a ton of different ways. Once you get your license, you can, like a lot of people, they call them like stepping stone aviation job, because if you're going to go to the airlines, they require you to have a X amount of hours. It's 1,500 hours is what you have to have. That's a lot of flight time. 1,500 hours sitting behind an airplane. Like you have that before you can ever fly in the airlines or ever be hired or anything. So that we call them that when you first graduate college, your first thing would be they call it a CFI, it's a certified flight instructor. So you can be a flight, like at air school. You fly your course, flight instructor, and teach other kids how to fly. Like right now, I personally could not teach anyone how to fly because I'm not a flight instructor. But if I had it, I could, like, the college would automatically hire you back to teach the students in the college. That way, it kind of like, hey, well, here's your guaranteed job to build hours until you can leave. That's the hardest thing to do, is to find that first job straight out of college, because everyone wants you to have experience. And I'm sure you run into this. It's like everyone wants you to have experience, but you need experience to get hired, but you have no experience. So you kind of go through that. But like, you can do parachute jumping. That's a big deal. People fly parachutes. People tow banners, like at the beaches. You go out there and do banner towing. You can do pipeline surveying. You can do like crop dusting, where you go out there in the Midwest and all these places, and do the huge farm fields. You can do what I've done. I've done aerial surveying. I just reached out to a local survey company here in Big Sun Gap, and luckily, as soon as I emailed the owner of the company, their pilot just quit right when I emailed him. He was like, "Hey, actually, I need someone anyway." So that just happened to work out perfect. So you can do aerial surveying. You can do flight instruction, or you can do like my brother did, and somehow he graduated college and jumped straight in the front seat of a jet. I have no idea how that happened, but it happened. So you can reach out to like your local people at the airports. But the biggest thing about the whole industry, and it might be like this in the medical field, I don't know, but like, just networking. The more people you network with, the more people you get to know. If you hang out at your airport and toss your name around, talk to people, talk to pilots, that's going to lead you in the best jobs. That's going to get your name out there. So the biggest thing to find that job is just network, and don't be afraid to email a lot.
Right. Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid for rejection.
Because if you're sitting there with no job and you don't try to put your name out there, you're sitting there with no job. If you sit there with no job and you put your name out there and they say no, you're in the same situation. If they say yes, your life just changed. So don't be afraid of rejection. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's interesting. So once you kind of get into one field, it sounds like that there's really a lot of mobility. Like once you kind of start to get some experience, that then you could like become a flight instructor, or is it kind of like common that a pilot will work in these different spheres? Like they might do some surveying, but then they could also maybe do some commercial flying. Do you kind of see that very often?
Oh yeah, that's huge. Like, that's the thing is, the turnaround, the turnover rate in this, and like my field, is huge, because people come here and they're like, well, I want to do this for a while. And then I immediately, because once you start building your hours, when you start getting 1,000 hours, 1,500 hours, 2,000 hours, then you start being a lot more competitive in the career field. So you can start finding these better jobs. So people will do like the job I'm in right now. But I came here thinking, well, I don't want to be here forever. I want to build time. But then I love what I do. I love the guys I work with. I love being home and living in Lee County, Virginia. So that's why I kind of want to stay here, and just, it's working now. So I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere. But yeah, you can definitely, it's like once you make yourself more valuable, it's a lot easier to pick and choose and move where you want to go. And if you want to fly for an airline, if you want to fly for a charter company, if you want to fly corporate. So just finding that first job to build yourself up, to make yourself competitive.
Mhm. Do you feel like that it's been pretty easy to find good mentors in the field?
Oh yeah, like they always say, like if you put two pilots in a room of 1,000 people, somehow those two pilots are going to find each other right off the bat. I don't know, but it just seems to be like that. We met a guy. We was in Hilton Head, South Carolina, down there on vacation one time, and we just was wearing a pilot shirt, and we walked by this guy, and he was like, "Hey man, you're a pilot?" And we just started talking and met the guy. I still talk to him to this day. He sent me a graduation card, and I sent him my wedding card and all this stuff. Turned out the guy flew Air Force One, and I never even knew it. He flew for Bill Clinton and Bush, I think, so he flew for. And I just, you make these connections, and you just start talking to people. And and there's groups on Facebook. I'm in a mentor group on Facebook where you can reach out to any pilot and seek advice. And they, it's just, I've never had any issue of being able to contact a pilot and asking questions. We have a contact with the guy who flies jets out of Tri-Cities for a coal company, and he's all the time letting us come in. Like whenever me and Jay were in high school, we'd go job shadow him and talk to him, and he's always been helpful to give us advice on things. And I think my brother still reaches out to him when he goes to fly different trips and asks for information. The mentorship is very strong in this industry. Like there's always someone reaching a hand up to help you, to talk to you. There's never been an issue at all finding someone to help mentor you.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, it sounds like it's a very open, welcoming field. So yeah, that sounds like that would be really good. It sounds like they're really welcoming to new,
Yeah.
brilliant people. who maybe like don't have any kind of like a family connection or anything to being a pilot. It sounds like that a lot of your first generation pilots are really welcomed in.
Yeah, that was us. We, and being from Lee County, you go to the guidance counselor's office and be like, "What do you want to do?" "I want to be a pilot." "Okay, well, I have no idea what," because like no, then we had no one in our family, so we just kind of tried to rely on Google, and we'd go to hotels. We travel on vacation, and we'd see a guy wearing a pilot badge. We're like, "Hey, do you mind to talk to us for a little bit?" Especially like if we was traveling through the airports. Anytime we saw a pilot sitting down waiting for his next flight, we'd go over to him like, "Hey, do you mind to talk to us for 5 minutes? Can you give us any advice on how you would go about your training? Would you go to college? Would you not go to college? If you had anything to change in your career path, what would you change and why would you change it?" So we would always go around and just ask these questions, because the best way to learn, the best way to go through life a little easier is to learn from your mistakes and learn from everyone else's mistakes. So if we could just be like, "Hey, this is what they mistake, this is what they would have done different," that seems that, that's just the best way to pick your way through. If you don't have any background or have anyone in your family, just find the people who are doing it and just seek their advice, because it's all, if you get to where you're going and you're not reaching back to grab someone else and bring them with you, then you've missed out on a big opportunity.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Even just to like generalize, even in my experience, like talking with people in the medical field, there are so many people that are just willing to talk to people that are interested in entering the field and to give them advice. And would you actually still want to be here? Would you still go through all of this to become, a pilot or to become a doctor? Like there are so many people who I think in any field are very willing to talk to, just like the interested, eager next
Yeah,
generation.
right, absolutely.
Yeah. So, are there any kind of parting words, anything that you would kind of leave anyone? I guess maybe if you want to talk about like what are three benefits that you feel of your field compared to any other field?
I get to The three biggest things: I get to see awesome sights. I can wake up in my house in Jonesboro, Virginia, and I can fly to the beach, and I can sit there and eat a lunch on the beach, and I can fly to New Orleans, and I can go down on these streets in New Orleans, and I can fly and see, like we were in Memphis the other day, and go see Elvis's house, and then go straight back to my bed the same night and go to sleep. I think that's the craziest thing to me is, I leave my house in the morning and I come back and I think, I was just over in Memphis. I was down in Alabama. I was in Florida, but now I'm going to sleep back in my bed tonight. I think that's one of the coolest things. I enjoy that a lot, and I enjoy getting to see different background. Like you don't just get to see Lee County. You get to see how other people's lives are and all these different cities, how people live, and you get to travel and see. So I think that's a second big plus is just get to see more diverse, different culture type things. And then third, I guess it also plays on everything, but just the views, like the sunrises, the sunsets, the even the bad, like if you're flying 50 miles from a huge thunderstorm and you're just sitting there in the pitch black at nighttime, and all you hear is just the plane, you see the lightning striking way off in the distance or something, just the views, and you get to see something that people don't get to see every single day. You get to see weather from a whole different outlook. You get to see the earth from a complete different look than what the average person gets to see. So I think that would be like my top three things, if I even categorize those right.
No, yeah, those are definitely really big benefits, and you have so much versatility in your field. Like if you get bored doing one type of piloting, then you can just kind of switch to another one. That sounds
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there any like last words of advice or anything that you would give to hopeful future pilots?
Yeah. I had this advice given to me all throughout school, because Air College would have like they call it Aviation Career Day, and they'd bring in all these airline pilot guys, and they'd bring in all these corporate guys, and they'd bring in all these law enforcement like medevac guys, and they'd break you into groups and say, "This is all about our life. This is all about our life. This is all about our life. This is what we do." So we got to see, well, these are what these guys are doing. This is what these guys are doing. So you always had a group of guys talking, "I make this much money a year. I drive this. I have this many houses. I do this." But then you come over to this group of guys that are sitting around drinking coffee, and they're like, "I'm home every single night. I have every weekend off. I get to go to all my kids' soccer games. I get to go to all this." And when you're young and you're going through school, you just want to make the most money. You want to live in the biggest house. You want to do this and this. But when you get older, I'm not even old, man. When you get wiser, you start thinking, that's I'm saying life is key. Quality of life is key. And I'm thinking, what is quality of life is different than for me and you, you know? But then you start thinking, you're like, no, my quality of life is as least as I can, make enough to where I can live a good life, you know? So if I can be home with my wife and my kid every single evening, if I can have weekends off, don't zero in so much on that you want to, I don't know, just pick a career field in your life where you just want to have a good quality of life. Don't get so caught up in numbers. Don't get so caught up in this. Get caught up in what you enjoy doing and just living the best life that makes you the happiest. That's just the greatest advice I can give anybody going into any career field or even aviation or anything. Just do what makes you the happiest.
Yeah, definitely. You have to live it. So you might as well enjoy it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with us and taking your time to explain all of this really interesting career field that I'm sure a lot of people really haven't ever thought about or really know anything about. So if anyone has any additional questions or anything, how should they reach out to you?
They can email me or call me or text me. My email address is codywolford5@gmail.com. And it's CODYWOLFORD. Or you can call me or text me at 276-690-4650, and I will help you. Between me or my brother or any other pilot, will help you the best we can, because we want to see people enthusiastic about flying and about being a pilot as well. So it makes us as happy as it makes anyone else.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I'll also link your kind of contact information with the video when I kind of post it. But so if you didn't catch that, like when Cody said that, you'll still have access to it with the video. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. It was great that you're reaching out to kids and doing this, and I'm so glad you asked me to be a part of it. So thanks so much for doing that.
Yeah, of course. All right. Thanks.
No problem. See you.
See ya.